Yorokobe, my fellow Fate enjoyers, to the part where I attempt to summarize the essentials of the Fate franchise up to mid-2023. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so get nice and comfy, and let's begin with the chronologically first series. Fate Zero. Fate Zero is a story of 7 people who summoned a bunch of historical figures to fight alongside them for the chance to win a golden wish-fulfilling cup, the Holy Grail, in the 4th Holy Grail War, which includes our colourful cast of Zashu, female King Arthur, angry jet plane knight, literal Cthulhu, and a bunch of grown men fighting for a cup. This happens before the Fate Stay Night series, by the way, and I would highly recommend starting from here if you are brand new to the series. Which brings us to Fate Stay Night, that tells the story of Shiro Emiya, an ordinary high schooler who's very aware that people die when they are killed. He accidentally summons female King Arthur and gets dragged into the 5th Holy Grail War, because they never f***ing learn never to mess with magical cups. The 2006 Fate Stay Night is the first route where he bones King Arthur. The Unlimited Blade Works series from 2016 and 2017 is the second route, where he gets together with Thick Thighs Tosaka Rin. There's also a movie from Studio Dean, but you can ignore that and watch the anime instead. And Heaven's Feel is a series of 3 movies where he goes for Sakura Mato, the girl with a tragic backstory, as his final route. Watch these 3 series in exact chronological order and feel free to simply catch up on the story of 2006's Fate Stay Night anime if your eyes get melted by old anime. But if you do watch it though, watch the full 24 episode series, not the TV reproduction that cuts out a lot of content. Because if you are going to suffer through the Dean animation, do it properly. Alternatively, play the original visual novel Fate Stay Night or the Rialta Nua version, which cuts out all the spicy mana transfer scenes. I'm fully aware a lot of visual novel fans will say the game is superior to the anime, but I know you're just playing the game for Tosaka's defenseless anus. Fate Hollow Ataraxia is the one game that fills in some of the blanks of the main series with Slice of Life, and a couple of new characters like an angry mango and Bazette, which kinda runs a bit like ReZero with all the time looping stuff. Also, who's Rem? It's fairly skippable even if there's a ton of die-hard original Fate visual novel fans who will get very triggered when you tell them that. The El Melloi case file follows a now grown-up Waver Velvet, one of the participants in the Grail War from Fate Zero, as he solves crimes in London alongside his student, Grey, a girl raised to become the second coming of King Arthur, who looks like King Arthur, but with grey hair. Who would have guessed? It's basically a continuation time skip of Fate Zero from Waver's point of view, except for some weird reason they skipped 2 entire arcs from the original light novel, and then adapted the 3rd one into this anime. But they only ever referenced them in passing either way, so it's fine not to read the whole 3 volumes just to watch this anime. Also, is it just me, or does El Melloi always make me think of Fate Strange Fake is some sort of indirect sequel to Case Files, which is getting an anime adaptation sometime in 2024, so 6 servants are now summoned in a fake Holy Grail War modeled after the 3rd Holy Grail War in Japan that was created by some random guy in America. The 7th servant shows up due to some time meddling by one of the most powerful magicians in the world, who drags in an alternate timeline version of the protagonist of the original prototype of Fate, known as Fate Prototype. I really don't know why I expected. Which brings us to alternate timelines that all have 0 relation to one another unless mentioned otherwise. And our first alternate timeline will have to be Fate Prototype that I mentioned earlier. This is the original concept of the OG Fate, except the main character is basically female Shiro, and King Arthur is a guy. Which details the events of the 2nd Holy Grail War, which happens in a separate timeline, not the main one, so it has nothing to do with the 4th and 5th Holy Grail War from the original Fate series. Fortunately though, it only has a single episode anime special, which really doesn't explain a lot, but there is no plans to ever adapt this anyway, so it's just nice to know this one exists, even if it is skippable. It's 1 episode, so I just watch it and move on. Fate Prototype Fragments of Sky Silver is the prequel to Fate Prototype, which is a novel that comes with the drama CDs. This covers the story of the 1st Holy Grail War that happens before Fate Prototype's 2nd Holy Grail War, which can then be followed up with Fate Labyrinth, a single volume novel side story for Sky Silver. And no, I don't expect you to go hunting for them because I didn't either. They're pretty skippable if you don't want to read. And before I forget about this one entirely, which I actually did in my original script, This is Fate Requiem, not to be confused with Gold Experience Requiem. This one's the Fate where your main character summons a literal satellite, which is great and all, but it doesn't have an anime. But speaking of series with an anime, let's go on to Fate Apocrypha, another completely separate timeline which covers the third Holy Grail War that has no relation to any of the other Grail Wars that I've spoken about before this, by the way. Two houses, the red and black factions, fight in a 7v7 Holy Grail War, except for some reason there's two of them. Don't ask me why, I don't know how that works either. And with 14 servants, you're in for a treat from a random French girl who looks like Joan of Arc, who actually ends up possessed by Joan of Arc. The plot device, who's probably the writer's self-insert who has a thing for Joan of Arc. Notice Me Chichiwe, the Disney villainess, Achy Heels, Immortal Sunman, Golem Man, Horseman, Dragon Slayer Man, Iron Man, a Greek cat girl. Fuck you assholes, I'm not Count Jack the Lol. Moriarty's daughter Fran, that one guy that made English class absolute hell. No, I'm Spartacus. And Best Girl, who isn't actually a girl. Shocking. I know. He gets a small side story for the end of the series. Also, Fate Labyrinth from earlier, as well as another spin-off, Fate Lost, I won't attempt to pronounce that, are part of the Apocrypha timeline, which are both light novels that you will probably never read. They aren't that important anyway, so just watch the Netflix series if you have an account, or... Which now brings me to Fate Grand Order, which is the gacha game I covered in my earlier video, which is yet another separate, different timeline. But since I covered most of it in my Fate Grand Order video anyway, I will just cover the anime side instead. The anime took the best parts of the game, the first chapter in Fate Grand Order First Order, followed by the 6 and 7 singularities of the game, and adapted them into anime. Camelot consists of 2 movies, Babylonia is an entire 21 episode anime, and there's the Solomon movie, which is basically final boss Thanos vs Avengers Endgame type stuff, but with Fate. Do prepare your eardrums for a lot of bass drops though, and watch these in the exact order I covered them in. There's the Moonlight Lost Room anime episode, which you can skip if you are a pure anime fan, because I know you're gonna have no idea what's happening since it occurs between the 1.5th arc and the 2nd arc of Fate Grand Order. And there's also the Initium Eater OVA that covers Eggplant Kohai's backstory, as well as the Learning with Manga anime, and the Fujimaru Ritsuka doesn't get it anime, which you can basically consider as an extra bit of lore to Fate Grand Order. And speaking of extra, comes Fate Extra, Extra CCC, Extella and Extella Link, which are another alternate timeline which details the adventures of the gender-bent emperor of Rome, Nero Umu Claudius, the nine-tailed fox girl Tamamo no Mae, and a gender-bent Attila the Hun, in a digital world set on the moon. And I will sum it all up for you in a few seconds. You try to beat up Buddha, get messed with by a group of AI based on Sakura who aren't Sakura if you still remember her from a few minutes ago, meet a nun who f***ed the planet, a giant meteorite alien, and the Emperor from Code Geass. Also, there's an anime, Fate Extra Last Encore, which has a different plot to Fate Extra because it's an alternate timeline of an alternate timeline, all because the director just wanted to f*** with everyone. I wish I was kidding. Fate Extra is on PSP but is getting a remake that has no release date as of yet. CCC has been fan-translated on PSP because it never actually got an English localization, probably due to the planet fuck. And Extella and Extella Link are Dynasty Warriors, but with Fate waifus on consoles and PC. And if there's another timeline that you can skip, it is probably this one, unless you are a based Umu or Mikon enjoyer who's probably seen all of their porn. And now for the smaller projects. Cannibal Phantasm is the crack-induced spin-off which includes the entire extended universe that Fate is part of, known as the Nasuverse, after the creator of Fate,
the Mushroom Kingdom,
Kinoko Nasu. This includes skits from Fate and Tsukihime, one of the many different series that make up the Nasuverse, which will probably fly right over your head if you didn't play Tsukihime, which I don't expect you to either, because I didn't. There's also an FGO Cannibal Phantasm as well, but you should probably play the game before watching this for context. Today's menu for the Emiya family is your run-of-the-mill cooking anime, but with Fate, which is a nice addition to Fate Hollow Ataraxia or the mainline Fate series. And of course there's a grand total of 3 samurai setting Fates. Fate Koa Ace, a gag comic, Fate type redline with the female Okita Soji of the Shinsengumi, and Fate Samurai Remnant, which is a video game that releases on 28 September 2023. All 3 of which are pretty much skippable because Redline is taking years to release its chapters of the mango,
Endured the lash of the spanking.
and Samurai Remnant is a spin-off of a spin-off. But who cares, I'm gonna play it anyway because we haven't had a mainline Fate game in quite a while. Also, ripping Pepperoni's arcade. This would not have happened if you had made it a console or PC release. And last but not least comes Fate Kaleid liner Prisma Illya, which is a magical girl spin-off of the Fate series in an alternate timeline. The Fate Zero Holy Grail War never happens and your ordinary middle school girl Illya finds a talking wand that gets her to hunt down class cards. Basically card captor Sakura. But you know what I'm about to say. But with Fate, with 4 seasons and the movie Oath Under Snow, which is actually pretty badass with its alternate timeline Shiro in this alternate timeline. There's also the Nameless Girl movie and the Prisma Phantasm special, which are fairly recent. But before you do get into this series, I do have to warn you that these characters end up in some very questionable situations. Make sure you lock your door and put on headphones so people don't judge you for your anime choices simply because you ran out of Fate to watch. Because I'm sure that's why everyone's watching Fate Kaleid liner, right? Which now covers everything from the Fate franchise that is of note. So I will summarize it for you in chronological order. Watch Fate Zero first, followed by Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, Heaven's Feel, and then play Hollow Ataraxia if you do feel like it. Then watch Fate Prototype so you can toss it aside. From here, you can then watch El Melloi Case Files, Strange Fake, the Fate Grand Order anime, the Emiya cooking anime, and Apocrypha, as well as the original Carnival Phantasm in whichever order you choose. I would still recommend watching Case Files before Strange Fake when it comes out and before Apocrypha, because I almost forgot to mention that Waver shows up in both, even though Apocrypha is in a separate timeline and I'm not sure if Strange Fake is. FGO Cannibal Phantasm requires you to play FGO to understand the context, and Extra is basically Extra unless you are absolutely based. Play Extra if you like turn-based combat and Extella if you like Muso. Once you run out of things to watch, you can then watch the Kaleid liner anime. Feel free to read or play all the other stuff I didn't include in the list, which basically covers everything. If you want more information though, the Type Moon Wiki is a pretty decent thing for that, which helped me keep track of all the important series to date. And you can't have a Fate video without Answer dying. Again. As always, stay safe, stay humble, and I guess you now know why all these characters keep getting more doji. This is the Knight, and we will see you next time. And for all the veteran Fate fans, you must be finding it very strange I missed out on a few Nasuverse essentials, which would be Kara no Kyokai with 3 movies featuring Shiki, and Maho Tsukai no Yoru, a visual novel that I haven't played that's actually getting an anime in December 2023. Also, Melty Blood. And you might be wondering why they are at the end of the video. Because I most definitely didn't hastily add them into the final draft.